Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. I'm Nicolette Hodge. Welcome to We Reflect the Light. Today I'm going to primarily give a verbal. This is a prelude to the subject of the chaff and the wheat, identifying the 400-year sacrifice that the original black man and original black woman right here in North America has made for the last 400 years. And we're going to focus on who the true seed of Abraham is, and of course tie that into the war in the Middle East, showing the connection. And so, like I said, this is going to primarily be a verbal today. This is part one. This is a prelude. And then we'll go deeper in part two. So, sisters and brothers, the question is, who is the true seed of Abraham? How can it be proven? I'm going to be asking a series of questions throughout today's presentation, putting this on your mind so that you can start thinking on what it is that has been done to us and correctly identifying our history and knowing your true identity, sisters and brothers. So, who is the true seed of Abraham and how can it be proven? There are those who claim that they are the true seed of Abraham. False Israel claims that they are us. Do they have any proof? Are their claims substantiated? Are their claims mathematical? To keep it simple, can they prove what they say that they are? All right. I'm going to play a clip, sisters and brothers.
Seen this? Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean, maybe it would be. What do you mean? What it would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that. If you believe the theology that you've just explained to me, would we do that now all over the world? And this is the only country in the world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land. But there are people who may not have bloodlines, but who have converted to Judaism. Are they going to be able to live here? Are you going to kick them out? By your standards, they can't live here. Because you just said that they have a right to live here because God gave them the land because they're the descendants of Abraham. Descendants of Abraham. But if they're the spiritual descendants of Abraham and they've now decided that they're converting to Judaism, then do they have a right to live in Israel? Since you began this conversation by asking me, did I think they had a right to come here? Yeah. That's my question was, on what basis do they have the right? Because God granted it to them. And also said because that there should be a land where Jews could live. In peace and justice. I asked you what a Jew was, and you couldn't answer it. You said, it's religious, but it doesn't have to be. It's protestant, but it doesn't have to be. And so that because I have to have a babies, family, we don't have to instrument. There's no evidence that I have to. He's not religious. And what says this tradition that you have this family tree? We don't know. He doesn't. Neither does. That's the point. So I don't know. He's anything. So you have to ask what he practiced in Judaism.
Who is the true seed of Abraham, sisters and brothers? False Israel claims that they are the true seed of Abraham. However, there is a very specific history that clearly identifies what Abraham's seed would endure, how long, where, and this is the information that will identify who the true seed of Abraham really is. Which, as you can see, just based off of some very simple questions, this devil could not clearly identify who the true seed of Abraham is. Okay? And he's saying that he's that person. He's the seed of Abraham. Excuse me. Excuse me, sisters and brothers. So let's keep moving. This is Abram's vision of horror, sisters and brothers. This is the true history of Abraham's seed. And as you can see in the first verse, and when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. Abram is the father of the seed that is being spoken of here. And this is the only place in the scriptures where he is called Abram instead of Abraham, which identifies that during this time period that's being spoken of in the scripture, Ham, which is Abram's seed, will be separated from him. So he's called Abram here, which is a very subtle hint that his seed will be lost during this time period that's being identified. And there's more details to it, sisters and brothers. It said when the sun was going down, which identifies a time period of energy deprivation. It identifies a time period of the universe expanding. Understand that the universe expands and contracts. And during the expansion period, the earth loses energy. And we are connected to the earth, therefore we lose energy as well. So, due to our complex DNA, it takes a lot of energy to sustain ourselves, and it takes energy to do everything. It takes energy to breathe. It takes energy to eat. It takes energy for your body systems to work. It takes energy to maintain a family. It takes energy to maintain your own land. Takes energy to maintain your own economic system, takes energy to maintain civilization. And due to our complex DNA structure, and with the energy leaving due to the expansion phase, we did not have enough energy to sustain civilization. We did not have enough energy to sustain ourselves. We only had just enough energy to stay alive, to keep breathing. Okay? And so we produced a being that did not require that much energy. And let me make this clear. I said we only had enough energy to stay alive, to keep breathing. We did not have the most clear way to explain it, as we didn't have enough energy to maintain civilization. So without getting into all the details of that. However, we produced a being that had a very simple DNA structure that was not not complex. Therefore, this being did not require much energy to sustain themselves. Therefore, they had a lot of energy left over, available energy, to use to keep civilization going. All right, so understand that we go through, depending on the phases that the universe is in, we are in different seasons. Okay, we go through different seasons, and different seasons cause for different plans of action, if you will. Each season calls for a different economic situation that fits that season. Every season has a balance, sisters and brothers. So whatever the balance is of that time, there's an economic system that fits that balance. So when the sun was going down, which is identifying a time period where we were stepping into energy deprivation, okay? And a deep sleep fell upon Abram. And lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. So he had a vision of horror. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety, this is a definite, sisters and brothers, and this is not a guess, this is not a maybe, this is for sure. Know of a surety that thy seed, understand, is seed, not descendants, not offspring, seed. Know of a surety that thy seed shall be sojourners temporarily, that's what sojourning means, in a land that is not theirs. All right, so that means that we're somewhere that it's not our land. This land is not ours, it doesn't belong to us. All right. Also, it identifies that we're not from this land. Because it's not our land, that means we're not from here. So this chapter right here in Genesis gives you quite a bit of information, sisters and brothers, and dispels all the lies about who we are, where we're from. Is they're saying that this is our land and reparations and all this bull crap. Nothing but noise to confuse you. And it shares, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them. So it shares that we shall serve them, and they afflict us. That's what's being identified here. So enslavement is the servitude. Okay? Slavery is an economic system of capitalism, maximum profit, minimum overhead. In a time period of energy deprivation, that slavery, that servitude, that's the economic situation for that time, for that season. So us serving these devils was not wrong. Us being enslaved is not the problem, sisters and brothers. Maximum profit, minimum overhead, getting the max amount of labor, free labor out of a person and giving them just enough for them to survive, because so they can get back to producing. They had to keep us alive. So the whole thing is, slavery is not wrong. However, slavery is 1% of our experience. And what we're going to get into is how they managed that economic system. How did they manage that? How did they keep that going? What quality did they put to it? affliction. They afflicted us. All right? And how long did they afflict us for? For 400 years. So what does that affliction entail? It identifies how they behaved towards us. It identifies how they conducted themselves. And that affliction is the Holocaust. The Holocaust is the correct term that identifies our full experience. The affliction is the 99%. Slavery is 1%. The Holocaust identifies the whole thing. Because they maintained our servitude. They maintained that economic system of capitalism with horror. And they did not have to do it that way. However, that's the quality that they gave it. Okay? Now, with them being a less complex being, they have a less complex, a very simple DNA structure. And the Supreme Wisdom Lessons goes into details of how the devil was made. And it was a process of taking the original man and separating the brown germ from the black germ. And then taking the brown germ and stripping it all the way down till it turned white. Okay? And by definition, they are weak. And that's why they are wicked. They lack discipline and they're totally stripped down. So that's their nature. They have a weak nature. So they dealt with us according to who they are. So there's no known by their works, nor a tree by the fruit that it produces. So that right there reveals who they truly are, because if they were righteous, and if they were holy people, or, the way that they try to portray what righteousness is, if they were what they claim to be, then they would have done pleasant, things to us. So you have to be very careful with the language, because due to the balance of the time, Adam being in rulership, he was righteous for the time. However, that affliction, that's something totally different, sisters and brothers, and that's what I'm identifying here. That's totally different. And that was not necessary in order to uphold the economic system for that season. Okay? So these devils brought us over here. They stripped us of knowledge of self. We didn't have the energy to hold on to our knowledge of self. Right? So they took our names from us. They took our language from us. They branded us with their names. They wanted to show ownership. All right? And some of us are walking around with those slave names to this day, not even realizing that that slave name was put on us to identify which massa, which plantation we belong to. They put their language on us. We were not allowed to speak our own language. We did not have the energy to hold on to our language. However, in the manner in which they stripped us of knowledge of self, was affliction. All right? They put their dirty religion on us of Christianity. A psychological tool of torture to torture our minds and keep us in submission. However, we were not Christians, sisters and brothers, because understand that they put their religion on us. However, we are Muslims. We are in total submission to the will of Allah. Just the mere fact that we submitted to these devils and served them, that's exactly what Allah's will was. And so that's exactly what we did. All right. So, and a Muslim is one who is in submission to the will of Allah. So they put their religion on us of Christianity. And they told us that if we don't believe in Jesus forever and ever, we're going to go to hell and burn forever and ever. Somehow they convinced us that there's a devil beneath the ground with a pitchfork that's just going to torment us and for eternity if we don't submit. And they had us in so much fear that we did not realize that the devils are right in our face, afflicting us, and that we are in the hells of North America. Ain't no hell beneath the ground. It's right. We're right here in it. And they told us that Jesus was up in the sky. And when we die, we might go to heaven if we be a good slave, be a good nigga for massa. And they would torment us with that on our deathbed. Torture us with it our whole lives. And then on our deathbed, they tortured and telling us that we're not even, that we wasn't good enough, that we wasn't going to go to heaven. And even if we did go to heaven, we're going to be slaves forever and ever and ever. And they gave us a picture of this devil in a dress that looked exactly like Massa, all right, and told us that this is who our God is. So the affliction had several layers to it. And it was on every single level. And they knew exactly what they were doing and are doing to this day. So how long did this go on for? The time period outlined here is 400 years. How do we know what the 400 years are? From 1619 to 2019. 400 years ended. 2019. 2020 came in with the plague, just like Exodus tells us. And it passed over those who are the true seed of Abraham, those who had the blood of the Lamb, the original black man and original black woman all over the world. While severely knocking down these devils, killing them, all right, affecting their numbers, dwindling their population down. And they are still fighting against COVID to this day. However, they don't, well, this is one of many, many plagues, sisters and brothers. That's COVID-19 is just one plague of many. So, another part of the affliction is them trying to rape our seed out of existence. Now, they tell us that, and they treated us like this, and they classified us as animals through that 3/5 human clause in the U.S. Constitution, and they have seen us as animals. However, that cannot, even though that's what they tell us, and that's what, that's how they have treated us, there's something in there that identifies that they truly know that we were not animals, because they were raping us around the clock, and they know that a human and an animal cannot produce a child. So they know that we were not truly animals. Okay? So that brings to question, what were they doing, sisters and brothers? These devils were given a certain time period of rulership to uphold civilization because we didn't have the energy to do it. And we said, okay, dirty water is better than no water. So we'll produce a being that will uphold civilization and we will serve them, we'll submit to them. Okay, and we're the only ones that fit the description of what's being outlined here in Abram's vision. The original black man and original black woman right here in North America. No one else fits the description of what's being spoken about here. So they have knowledge of who we are. They know exactly who they're dealing with. The Quran identifies that, the scriptures identifies that Adam was taught our names, which means he was taught all about us. He was taught exactly who we are. All right, so that makes sense, him going into being the one ruling for that time period. He's given all the facts and information. However, what did he do with that information? That's what we're going to be. I'm asking a series of questions here in part 1. Part 2, we're going to go deeper into it. So this is a prelude, sisters and brothers. Keep that in mind. I'm putting some questions on your mind, and in an effort to get you to think on this. Why did these devils do this? We might be, as a nation, we might not understand who we are. However, these devils know exactly who we are. Okay, and they've had many different plans and different ways of coming at us in order to take us out of existence. All right? So they raped us around the clock. They raped us relentlessly. They raped us 24/7. They raped us nonstop. They did not spare any of our babies. They didn't spare our men. They did not spare our boys. Okay? And we all started off as babies. They did not have any reservations. Okay? They did not have any boundaries. They were the ones who had the authority at the time. They were given rulership. All right? So they were given dominion. So, and they were told, do not touch that tree. However, that's exactly what they did. Why did they do that though? Why did they rape us consistently? Why did they rape us so much? Why did they force their seed in our womb and force us to give birth to their house Negroes? Why did they produce an entire nation of devils and black skin? Demons, half devil, half man. All right, and then they look like us, they walk like us, they don't talk like us. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, masquerading amongst the sheeps, confusing the sheeps about who the sheep are. Causing the sheep not to trust each other. Secretly slaughtering, eating the sheep. Howling. Just as a wolf, but look like a sheep. That's the house Negroes. They were put over us as role models, taskmasters, overseers, supervisors. Why is that? Why is there such a concentrated effort to wipe us out of existence? And what if they wipe us out of existence, what was in it for them? If they did that in their mind, according to their plan. So these are questions. I'm going to keep asking these questions as we go through, sisters and brothers. Like I said, this is a prelude. So moving on, and then I'll come back to the affliction part and highlighting what the sisters did to combat this attack that the devil's made on us. It shared that also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And we went into that with COVID-19, the plague that hit in 2020 came right on time. Judgment started right on time. And so that's how we verified that 400-year time period. And it shared also that nation. Understand that it wasn't individual. It's not individuals that's being identified. When it says that nation, it's identifying an entire group that afflicted us, which includes America, Britain, and false Israel, the European nations, the Caucasian nation. So the devils like to make the silly argument that they haven't afflicted us or that they didn't put us through anything, and that was, their great grandfathers. However, understand that everyone is back through the womb. And it shares that nation, not that individual. So there's no wiggling out of this, sisters and brothers. Plus, these devils are still reaping the benefits of the horror that they put us through. So these devils want to argue that they didn't do that, and that was, a long time ago. However, they are eating the fruits of that. They are benefiting or, eating the fruits of that was produced from the horror that we endured. So that argument is dispelled as well. That's just more noise that they're trying to throw you off. However, the scriptures, when understood, it keeps you right on track. Can't nobody throw you off with none of their side noise when the scriptures are 100% clear. It shares, and after the judgment, shall they come out? It says, will I judge? And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. Come out, sisters and brothers. We're constantly being told through scriptures, come out. We was already told that we'll be sojourners. That means temporarily in a land that is not ours. We're not from here. And now we're also being identified right here that we're coming out with great substance. But thou shalt go where? Go to thy fathers in peace. Our fathers are not from America. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. And in the fourth generation, so going back to the fourth generation, says that we'll be going through this for 400 years. We're in the fourth generation right now. The fourth generation. They shall come hither, which means return. Return where, sisters and brothers? To the same place our father Abram was at when he had this vision of horror of what we would endure. So, false Israel claims that they are us, but this ain't their history. This is the history of the original black man and original black woman right here in North America who are being held captive in the land of our imprisonment. So this clearly identifies that just based off this scripture alone, they are liars and thieves and murderers. So the correct term for our experience is the Holocaust, sisters and brothers. Don't let them fool you. They're trying to keep you from remembering what was done to you so that you don't take judgment, judge them for what they have done to us. Scripture says an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Well, if you don't remember that your eye was taken out or your tooth was taken out, you're not looking to take the other person's eye or tooth out. So I'm here to jog your memory, sisters and brothers. Here to help you remember what it is that you have been through, so that you can understand exactly what the scriptures is commanding us to do next. Because we are the judges, and we're the ones to judge these devils what they did to us. They did it to us, so we're the ones to judge them. That's justice. That's consequence. And there is no getting out of consequence. So in an effort to make you in an effort to prevent the consequence, they want you to totally forget or never even understand who you are. However, they will not be successful. Because us reflecting the light of the angel, which that light has been provided by the messenger of the covenant, the breaker of the seven seals, Daniel the prophet, we are a part of the consequence of the Holocaust as well. So understand that we're here on post as a result of consequence. So you have all of this support. And all of these different measures have been taken to make sure that you're successful, sisters and brothers, and you come out on top in your rightful place. So they cannot stop this. They're trying to block this message every way that they can. However, it's burning them up. And you cannot block the sun. If you can try to block the sun all you want, it's just going to burn you up. So understand that the Holocaust is our true experience, not slavery. Slavery does not include being raped. Slavery does not include being tortured and humiliated. Slavery does not include mass genocide on a nation of people. That's something else. And we highlight our sisters. Because if it wasn't for you, sisters, we would not be standing here today. So, the sacrifice that we have made, sisters, the 400-year sacrifice that we have made to our nation, is proven facts. So we don't have to guess about that either. Now, these pictures don't do justice, sisters. We did not have any clothes on. All right, but even in them showing history, pictures of our experience is still whitewashed. And it doesn't give the full scope of what they really did to us. We were not allowed to wear any clothes. They wanted full access. They had full access to our bodies at any given moment. That's why they stripped our clothes off of us. And they experimented on us. They tinkered with our body parts, cut us open without any anesthesia, and mangled us up. 3 people right here. 3 devils surrounding this sister. We didn't get any breaks, sisters and brothers. We barely had enough energy to survive. They did not have any compassion or care for us whatsoever. Zero, none. And these 3 devils about to pounce on this sister. And this was a normal thing. This was a routine situation. So understand that we endured absolute horror, torture, and terror. They want to downplay our experience. It's a slap in the face on steroids. However, they did not be successful. And whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And all this pressure that they had us under formed us into diamonds. They did not crush us. So understand that we use everything to our benefit. We did not ask to be put in this situation. We cannot control the different phases of the universe, and we do not control the seasons. All we can control is how we respond to it. And we responded immediately. And we went into action. No one had to tell us to do it. And we saw it through. And if we didn't do it, we would not be here today to even speak and give you this message, sisters and brothers. While these devils were trying to rape our seed out of existence, we saw ahead. We saw that they were trying to totally wipe us out. And us being the warrior queens that we are, what they call the saying that they say today, we stood on business. Standing up for our nation in a time of need, doing what needs to be done, like the warrior queens that we are. Okay, so this is not a sob story, right? This is not a damsel in distress. Understand that this is a story of victory and triumph, because these devils went to war with us in the fields. They went to war against our seed. They were trying to wipe the true seed of Abraham out of existence. Now ask yourself, if they did that, what will be in it for them? And in the manner of which they did it, by camouflaging themselves amongst us, what were their goal? What is it that they were trying to do? Because they knew that there's a reward for Abraham's seed endured. But if they got rid of Abraham's seed and they made themselves look like Abraham's seed, what would that have meant for them? What was their end goal? Again, I'm just asking questions right now. What was their end goal with that? So, sisters, we stood up. We snuck and we were intimate with the original black man. And that is very monumental. That is very serious, sisters and brothers. Not the fact that we were being intimate, the fact that we put our lives on the line to keep Abraham's seed alive so that we could get to our destination. Because we're sojourning, that means we're temporary in the land. That means that this ain't our home. We're going somewhere. It says we're returning. It says we're hithering. It says that we're going back to our fathers in peace. So we understood that And let me make this clear. We lost knowledge of self, so we didn't have much energy. We couldn't hold on to the knowledge of self. However, we saw what it was that they were doing, and us sisters, we look ahead. We say, oh, they're trying to prevent us. They're trying to prevent us from living. So we procreated with our original black man and kept our seed in existence under the threat of immense torture and murder if these devils found out that we were, one, procreating, and two, if they even suspected that we were pregnant with an original black baby. So if they even suspected that we were pregnant with Abraham's seed, they were going to murder us in cold blood after they tortured us. So that took a lot of courage. That took a brave warrior queen to stand up to these devils during a time of affliction. So your efforts, your sacrifice, the charity that you have made to the original nation is not gone unnoticed, sisters, and you will be avenged. So when they talk about the angry black woman, they don't see people there. People like to talk about the reaction. They don't talk about the action. They don't talk about what the sisters have been through, the fact that the sisters have been overworked and underappreciated for the last 400 years. They don't talk about that part. They just talk about the fact that the sisters are angry and upset. They don't identify the trauma that led up to that point. So you're not sinful, sisters. There's nothing wrong with you. We're in the pig pen with these devils, so we got shit on us. So we stink. So we might have a stinky attitude. That's not who we are. That's not our nature. So all that BS is just noise. So we stood up for our nation in a time of need, and we have been on post ever since. And it's not just the fact that we were intimate, it's the fact that also that investment, that 400-year investment it takes to keep Abraham's seed alive and thriving. Understand that the more that they put us through, all of that affliction, it didn't kill us, it didn't crush us. Our seed kept coming through the womb stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So we were producing stronger and stronger babies. And we had to sneak to nourish our babies. All the things that it takes about a year to even stabilize from the moment of conception, and you're pregnant for 9 months, and then another 3 months or so. It takes about a year to even stabilize that life. So it's not just the fact that we were sneaking to be intimate, it's the fact that that was just the beginning part of it. That was just that was just getting the seed in the womb. All the things that we had to do to sustain Abraham's seed and keep us alive, that is something that will never be forgotten, sisters. Because without your sacrifice, there would not be Abraham's seed would not be around to even receive the reward that's in store for us. And they knew they knew exactly who we are, and they were trying to totally get rid of us. But they know that there is a reward. They know there's a covenant in place for Abraham's seed. So what was in it for them if they wiped our seed out of existence and they were walking around looking like us? Because remember, they produced demons, half devil, half man. So they're devils. They have devil blood running through their veins, but they have black skin like their original mothers. So they were camouflaging themselves amongst us. And if they wiped us totally out of existence, and they know that there is a reward after that in that fourth generation, and they know in that fourth generation that Abraham's seed will be hithering and going back to thy father in peace. What was their plan? What was the end game what was the end goal for them? What were they trying to accomplish by taking our identity and taking our physical appearance? What were they trying to accomplish there? This is the very next verse after Abram's vision of horror, which identified the true history of the seed of Abraham. And it shares, in that day God made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. These two rivers are not in America. As I have stated before, they're not in America. You're not going to find these two rivers in America. They try to throw you off and confuse you and tell you the Mississippi River is this. They're making up a bunch of BS, sisters and brothers. These two rivers are not in America. Unto thy seed have I given this land. Unto thy seed. So where is this land at, sisters and brothers? The land that's between those two rivers is Arabia, our promised land, which is more than a promise. It's God's sure and volatile word to give us our own land. And at the end of the 400 years and in the fourth generation, which we're in the fourth generation now, it shares that we would return. So we are stepping into a new season. We just came out of a very cold winter. And now we're going into the spring season. Again, there's a different economic situation for every season. So here we are promised our own land. That's economics right there. That's the economic system that we're promised economics, and that's a situation that we are in control of because it's ours. All right. When we read Abram's vision, it said that we'd be strangers in a land that's not ours. So that means we'd be strangers in an economic system that we're serving these devils. You know, that's not ours. But here we're promised our own economics. The devils already had their economic. However, we are promised our own here. So in an effort to prevent the Abrahamic covenant from being fulfilled, which we're in the fourth generation, and the covenant is in the process of being fulfilled. We're given a messenger of the covenant to let us know that we have an inheritance, we have a reward, which no one outside of the messenger of the covenant and those reflecting his light is letting you know that you have a reward. Sisters and brothers, you have a birthright, you have an inheritance. Everyone else is telling you that you're staying here. Louis Farrakhan says that we ain't going nowhere and that we're sinful. So he's doubling down, justifying his devil fathers, because he's also a devil in black skin. He's admitted that his father is a devil who raped his black mother. And he's saying that we ain't going nowhere. However, he's part of that agenda to destroy the true seed of Abraham. So, sisters and brothers, this is a prelude on what is it that these devils had in mind, what their plan was to do with the Abrahamic covenant. And understand that this war in the Middle East is about the Abrahamic covenant. And they could not let this covenant be fulfilled. Because for the covenant to be fulfilled, that's their destruction right there. For us to know who we are, the false Israel claims that they are us. They're not. They're over in Jerusalem. They're not in Arabia. So that's clear that they're liars, they're thieves, they're murderers. So they're sitting over there, they're fighting tooth and nail to remain in the Middle East, and they shouldn't even be over there. They're over there fraudulently. They're in a place they shouldn't be, claiming to be somebody they're not. So they're an abomination. And America and Britain established false Israel over there in the Holy Land in 1948. America and Britain and false Israel are the ones who put us through the affliction. They put us through the Holocaust. So they know exactly what they're doing, even though they have us as a people blind to what they're doing right in front of us. It says that they're dealing with us shrewdly, sisters and brothers. That means they're doing it in a way that you don't detect. They're tricking us. However, the scriptures tells us exactly what they're doing and what they're going to do so that we don't have to be in the dark anymore. It's the light. So, sisters and brothers, this is a prelude. I'll be back with part 2. Understand that any day now, America's economy is going to collapse. America is going to lose the war in the Middle East. And things will no longer be the same. We're about to get out of here, sisters and brothers. However, before we do, they're going to try to make an attack, or they're going to make an attack on all blacks to totally destroy us so that the Abrahamic covenant cannot be fulfilled. So be aware and be prepared. Get yourself at least a 30-day supply of food that does not have to be cooked. Have it in your car ready to go. Fill up some gas tanks, secure them safely. Have those in your car ready to go. And be prepared to move out at any moment. Because America will not win this war in the Middle East. They will be kicked out the Middle East. They will be defeated. And they will make a deadly attack on the true seed of Abraham and the rest of the blacks, on all blacks. So with that, sisters and brothers, that brings this segment to a close. I will be back with more. This is a prelude. Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.